very Negea has become very popular to have Mezonos bread. And one of our very regular Mishtatfim, asked if I could address the question of Mezonos bread, and as I worded it in the list of questions, at what stage does it morph into Hamotzi? So you start off with Mezonos bread, and then at some stage you're told it becomes Hamotzi. So I'm going to address the more common scenario, and that is people buy a pack of sandwiches, they buy a pizza for lunch or something, and they are satisfied. I explained to the Talmidim and Talmidos, how do you distinguish between a snack and a meal? A snack means I don't have time to eat properly, I'm lacking energy, I need a boost of energy. Typically a snack will be high sugar or highly flavored. You'll only eat a small amount of it. It'll give you a boost of energy and keep you going for a little while. After a while, you're going to be hungry again. A meal is you have a larger amount of food. It's more bland. And because it's more bland, you could eat more of it. And that keeps you going for a few hours. That, in my mind, is a distinct difference between a snack and a meal. Now, for this reason, a sweetened food is more a snack food rather than a meal food. And that's the logic behind what's called Hamotzi, what is Mezonos. Lechem she'ene gomer, a food which you don't normally have as bread, but if you're going to make it into a meal, so then that's going to be called lechem, it becomes Hamotzi. So now you've got a scenario where you have a massive appetite and you eat a large amount of Mezonos and you're not loisovat mimenu. That's the first part. If you have here the quote from the Alter Rebbe in Seder Birchas Hanehenin, Perik Beis, Halacha Beis. So the first part talks about a person who's eating the volume equivalent of 6 eggs and is not satisfied. Very few of us have that problem. So the problem is the other part, which I've made in larger writing, and that is the following. V'im sova mimenu. If you are satisfied, you're eating Mezonos, where it doesn't matter whether it's Mezonos bread or chocolate cake or brownies. If it's a Mezonos, v'sova mimenu, and you are satisfied, yitul yodo v'yivorech hamotzi or birchas hamozen or lov levadei. If you're satisfied, then it becomes Hamotzi. That's the din of the Gemara. The question is like this. There's normal and not normal. There is a concept when a person has not normal behavior, we say, botlo daitoi eitzel kol odom. You say, but we're going to judge by what's the norm. So we have a case where a person eats a little bit and it's a meal. So we say you've had so little, that's not normal to be satisfied. Then that becomes a problem. So that's the second part of what we're going to discuss now. But if you are a regular person, and a regular person would be satisfied with what you've eaten, then it's Hamotzi. So therefore, if you eat the equivalent of 4 eggs, and I'm going to show you the next slide, we'll talk about what that means practically. If you have the equivalent of 4 eggs, then that is Hamotzi. You know what, we'll already go on to the next slide and we'll come back. I have a sefer in front of me. If you can see it, it's called Sefer Kazayas, and it has life-size pictures of various foods to tell you where they are Kazayas. So here he has a pita bread. I hope I'm getting it right. I think the standard pitas are all more or less the same. And he's writing here that a quarter of a pita is already a kazayas. Such a matchbox, yeah? Brian May, or whatever it is the volume of a kazayas. Just for a bit more fun, I've got this little cup. If you can see this little cup, and it's got lines for a kazayas. I've got here one of these, what we used to call medicine cups. We call them mashka cups, yeah? I guess the whiskey companies made sure that they become bigger, so they sell more whiskey. But there you have, if you can see, it's a little bit lower than the rim. The smaller ones would be exactly 1 fluid ounce, and that's a shear of a kazayas. Now, it's obviously difficult to work that out with a piece of bread, but there you are. 1/4 of a pita is a kazayas. The other one, he says, 1/3 of a slice of bread is a kazayas. A kazayas is half an egg, which means 1 pita is 2 eggs. 2 pita is 4 eggs. So let's come back. If you're having 2 pita, 2 pitas, and you're satisfied. It could be you're satisfied not because of the pita alone, but because there's going to be a bit of salad or falafel balls, doesn't matter. But if you are having 2 pitot, yeah, and you are satisfied, it's hamotzi. Relax, enjoy. Then the question becomes, so now let's take a look. What did we see? A third of a, what did he say then? 1/3 of a slice of bread. So 4/3 of a slice of bread becomes 8/3. 8/3 means to just under 3 slices of bread. So 1 packet of sandwiches is not enough to be called daled bayim. 1.5 packets, where you got already, now you got into 3 slices of bread, you already have daled bayim. Let's go further. If you're having Mezonos less than, let's say you're going to have 1 packet of sandwiches. So you're not, and you are satisfied. Well, then we have a problem here. Because do we say, oh, well, because you are satisfied, it's hamotzi? Or do we say, well, since most people are not satisfied with that amount of bread, then it's still Mezonos. Therefore, you still have to be machmir, but to cover yourself, you should have a kazayis of lechem achet chilo. And you should make a hamotzi on the kazayis of real lechem. So what that means is, if you're going to have Mezonos sandwiches for your lunch, and you're going to be satisfied, so what you should do is, you should also have a kazayis of real lechem, of hamotzi lechem. If you don't have that, I would say it still remains hamotzi. It's just that you're not covering all bases, that's all. So that's the story. That if you are satisfied with, and you're having, as I say, 2 pitot, then you make hamotzi on that and you bench without any hesitation. Okay, I hope that makes that clear. Let's go on to the next slide.
Sorry, I remember in the past, you once said something about pasta never being considered, how much pasta you eat.
I'll respond to that briefly. We've got 3 levels. We've got lechem gomer, which is hamotzi. We've got Mezonos gomer. We've got porridge and pasta, which by no stretch are they defined as lechem. And you can have a mountain of pasta, and it's never becomes lechem. It never becomes hamotzi. You've got then somewhere in the middle. We've got these flavored breads, like cake and like Mezonos bread, etc. It's a sweetened bread, so it's called lechem she'ene gomer. That's the one which a small amount is Mezonos and a large amount is hamotzi. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next point, and that is a woman. Okay, oh gosh, not Mama shall I say, it doesn't matter. A woman asked me yesterday, they have a member of the family who's got a gluten problem. And because of this, she's making, for this boy, she makes...
What happened with the Jewish mother and non-Jewish father?
So I'm not, I'll say that. Okay, sorry, I'll come back, don't worry.
Okay.
So now, she's got you have a child who has a gluten problem, so she wants to make a bread for him with, there are alternative flours from beans, whatever it may be. But then it's shahakal. She wants to say you should be able to be yotzer the Mishnah. So wants to put in a bit of oats. Apparently, oats is not such a problem for gluten sufferers. Okay, so the question was the ratio. How much oats has to be in the mixture to be able to make it Hamotzi. So the answer to that is, there's a concept of kazayis bichdei achilas pras. That if you have, you see here the quote on the screen. You have kemech shel on the right side. You've got flour from chameshes mini dogon, and it's been mixed with flour of beans. So the second paragraph says, then he says that becomes, if there is in a pras of the mixture, there is a kazayis, then it's hamotzi. So what that means, a pras is 3 eggs, and so kazayis is 1 egg, is a half egg. So it's answered if it's a 1-to-5 ratio. If there's 1 cup of oats and 5 cups of the other flour, of the let's say rice flour, whatever it may be, then it's hamotzi. Then the next question, they came back. Now, does the boy have to have? How much does he have to eat in order to be able to bench? So that's where we have in the second paragraph on the right, yesh oimrim, that although by this ratio it's hamotzi, but to bench perhaps you have to eat the whole pras, all the 3 eggs. And therefore he remains in a sofik. So it's definitely hamotzi. In whether to bench on that amount remains a sofik. Okay. If we have time, we'll come back to this because there's 2 quotes. One is from Perek Zayin and one's from Perek Gimel, and it requires there's a little bit of a contradiction here, but I don't know whether we have time for going through that whole pilpul. Okay, let's come back to the list then. What I missed out, I got this call from a message from France, where you have again here a case of a Jewish woman married to a non-Jewish, and they have a baby boy, and the non-Jewish father is absolutely against having a bris. So then the mother asks the shliach, can you do a baby naming ceremony to give him a Jewish name? She would like to have a bris, but this is where she wants to come in. So I told him the following. I heard from Reb Moshe Katzenelnbogen, who was the Ziva Grishin, a son-in-law of someone known as a Yehuda Kolasher. Now this is back in Russia, in Gruzia, in Georgia, and Reb Moshe is a young man, and someone comes in to Reb Yehuda Kolasher, who was the Rav of the community there, and he asks, can we do a pidyon haben to a boy who has not had a bris? And Reb Yehuda Kolasher says, no, you can't do a pidyon haben without a bris. And Reb Moshe says, Azay, you can't do a pidyon haben without a bris. After the family, who left the room, Reb Yehuda says to Reb Moshe, he says, if we allow a pidyon haben, there won't be a bris. Don't allow a pidyon haben which is an bris. He was using with his wisdom to understand, to assess the situation. And here we have this question. You got this Jewish mother, and she's asking for, you know what? Give me a discount. I can't do a bris. Can we do a half measure? And especially, I'm sensitive, especially in France, they use this word communion. Communion is like the confirming of status. It's something which is important in their culture. And she wants to have a name, say a Jewish name ceremony. They say, you've done a Yiddish thing. It's without the bris. I felt that it's actually not a wise thing to do at all. It's obviously it's not la halacha, it's not ke halacha, and it's a concession which I felt would be counterproductive.
What was that?
Will tell.
A concession?
I felt it was a concession which would be counterproductive, because by doing this, by saying, oh, you can do a baby naming ceremony without a circumcision, so you're going to have now a new concept of having a Jewish baby naming ceremony, which with a missing out in Mitzvah's Mila, which is a mitzvah in the Torah. And what will happen? The baby won't have a Jewish name for a few years. What's Shazai? Okay, let's go on. So we'll come back to that Bez Hashem next week. Now, here's something very interesting. Someone showed me there's a Bir Halacha. You see this Lashon Bir Halacha is in Siman Tov Kuf Nun Dalet. Bir Halacha is from the Chofetz Chaim and the Mishnah Berurah, and he quotes here the Sefer Pischei Olam. Ein Sefer Pischei Olam, and he talks about an epidemic of cholera. Now this is the Sefer Pischei Olam. You can see inside if you want. It was written by Reb Dov Ber Karasik, who was a Rav in Kralevitz. His son-in-law was a Rav Medalia, who became a Rav of Moscow, I think. And his son, Rav Hillel Medalia, was a brilliant man, and he was for many years, he was the Rav in Leeds. Was it Shomer Hadass? I'm not sure.
It's a Medrash. Street Lane Gardens, Beis Medrash.
Okay, Street Lane Garden, Beis Medrash. And later he emigrated, he became the Rav of the Shomer Hadass in Antwerp. And he published these Sforim of his grandfather. So the Mishnah Berurah used these Sforim, and he quotes the Pischei Olam, where he says about the machlo, about the cholera, and he says about eating less than a koseves, and then he talks about covering your mouth. And now this is actually the Pischei Olam was a Chabad Chosid, and this is a quote from the Sefer Divrei Nehemiah. The Sefer Divrei Nehemiah, Reb Nehemiah Dubrovna was a chaver of the Tzemach Tzedek. He was married.
Sorry, I'm not sure what the shaila is here. What's going on?
I'll discuss in a moment, but I'm going through the history. The Divrei Nehemiah was he was a chaver of the Tzemach Tzedek. He becomes a chassid of his, and he wasn't a Rav. He was actually a manufacturer of talesim. He had a factory in Dubrovna, and Tzemach Tzedek corresponds with him. And it was a time, it looks like it was a year Tov Reish Ches, which means 5608, and there was a plague of cholera. The question, before I come to the actual question, there's a correspondence in the Divrei Nehemiah, and the Tzemach Tzedek writes to Reb Nehemiah, and this piece which the Mishnah Berurah is quoting is actually the Lashon of the Tzemach Tzedek, and what got people's eye was the last two lines. If a person has to go out, he should wear sovav l'chot mo'lefiv. Around his nose and mouth, he should have chaticha ketana camphor. He should have a piece of cloth over his mouth and nose, and a bit of asiv miyatna, some kind of herb also. So Mr. Brewer brings this, but it's actually the Lashon of the Tzemach Tzedek. The question
camphor is a chemical.
Camphor in English is a chemical, but it looks the way they translate it in the
Isn't Mayenta mint?
Could be. Possibly yes. Mienta. Mienta sounds like a Russian pronouncing mient. Yeah. Okay.
My enters at home.
Now, so what's the story? The question, the discussion, the debate between the Divrei Nehemiah and the Tzemach Tzedek is the following. We understand if a person's ill, they don't have to fast. But what happens if they're not ill, but there is a plague, and the worry is if they have a weakened system, they may become more susceptible to illness. Should they be told not to fast? And the Tzemach Tzedek have taken the view that they shouldn't fast even if they're not ill, but because they will become more susceptible to illness. So let's, and this is important because it's important to understand when people ask me today, I'm not feeling well, do I have to fast? So my answer is, the standard answer is, I'll try to eat bits and pieces, like on Shiurim, which you do on Yom Kippur. The general approach is no. If a person, other than Yom Kippur, if a person is not able to fast, they eat normally. Just don't indulge in gishmak, a lot going to chocolates, but azoi, they eat normally. Here the Tzemach Tzedek's talking about eating small amounts. So what's going on here? It's talking about not people who are ill, people who are well, but they're worried they might be susceptible to an illness which is ravaging in the region. So let's read the words inside. Certainly, your words, Reb Nechemia, are convincing. Where the plague is not very strong, to have smaller amounts, less than the size of a fig, with intervals of the amount of let's say 5 minutes, 7 minutes, whatever it may be. Commotion is bad b'shiyurim so, as I'm trying to explain this a bit clear, that although normally with the other fasts we don't talk about eating shiurim, but here the Tzemach said he's talking about healthy people. They're not unwell, but there's a worry that they might contract or develop illness. There he says, if that's the case, don't fast normally, eat small amounts at intervals, as the din of Yom Kippur. By having small amounts with intervals, you haven't violated the fast totally. And the Eibishter wants your sincerity. One who persists, they do want to fast, where the plague is not ravaging fiercely, chas v'sholem. He should be advised and cautioned. If that's the case, you want to fast, stay home. And if you are forced to go out on the fast when you are weakened because you're fasting and you might be susceptible to what's going on outside, he should wear over his nose and mouth, he should wear chaticho ktan or camphor, he should wear this kind of cloth cover over his mouth and nose, or me'at esev mienta, and he should have a bit of, you say, he should have some mint with him. So that's the background to this, which is very relevant. He's not talking about wearing the masks on Shabbos, etc., nothing to do with it. But this is what the Mishnah Berurah quotes, and it's talking specifically in a case of healthy people, but they are worried about contracting an infection which is prevailing.